Okay, now that we've removed the bobbin winder tension disc assembly and seen all those parts and the bobbin winder thread guide, we can now get to the main part of the bobbin winding system on the 503A. And that consists of this engaging lever assembly and the bobbin spindle bracket and friction ring. Let's see if I can get a little closer here to this. Okay, so the first thing that we want to take off here is the engaging lever assembly. And it's called the engaging lever because when you put your bobbin on the spindle and you push that lever into the bobbin like that, that engages the friction ring to the motor shaft, so when it turns, it's going to turn the bobbin. And then as that bobbin fills with thread, it pushes that engaging lever away, and that disengages the friction ring from the end of the motor shaft, so it doesn't spin the spindle or the bobbin anymore. So to take this off, there's just one screw here, but you need to be careful because there's a spring right here, and this spring is frequently broken. And you can see the edge of it come up and wrap around the lever right there. I don't know if I can get any, with the lighting here you may not be able to see it, but it's right there. So when you pull this lever assembly screw out, the lever assembly comes and the spring, and there's a washer underneath there, and they can all come tumbling out and fall down into this area or this area. So just to make you aware of that. And this screw screws into the what's called the oil shield. It's like this little tray here that the cord to the light passes through. And that oil shield sits on top of a hole in the actual aluminum body down here, which you'll see in a moment. So that's the kind of the stack of parts here. So when you take out this screw, just be aware of all of that stuff may come tumbling out. So I usually kind of pinch the lever to keep it from just coming right off, and turn that screw until I can remove it completely. There's what it looks like. And then I try and lift the lever straight up with the hopes that I won't lose that washer or spring. I'm kind of pinching the spring there in my fingers, and I got it. So here's what the lever looks like, and you can see the washer now sitting on top of this oil shield, and you can see the spring, and it's just kind of like one coil of spring, and on one end it has a little fish hook shape, and the other end, let's see if I can do it over here. There, one end has that fish hook, and the and the other end of the coil has a little tail that sticks down, and the fish hook goes up and the tail goes down. And the way it sits, maybe I can show you how it sits on this lever with that little hook right there to the right of the hole. Right there in that little curve. That's where that spring rests. Let me see if I can pinch it there and turn it over. You can see the tail sticking down here then. Okay. So there's the engaging lever and the engaging lever spring. And next is that little washer, this little steel washer. Now if you want to take out the oil shield, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do it, but if you're just doing this to replace the spring or to clean it, you don't necessarily have to take out the oil shield. It's really not part of the bobbin winding system per se, but to get it out, you pull up some slack on the cord here that's running to the light. It's coming up from the terminal down by the motor, and then let's see if I can see right here, the end of it, there's a hole, and it just rests around a screw that goes through from behind the stitch width faceplate and holds another bracket down here. So it's not screwed on there, it's just a hole that goes over the end of that screw. So once you work that cord out of there, this is the oil shield. And see, there's that hole, just slips over the end of the screw right there. That's all it does to hold that end of it. And then this end ends up being under the engaging lever assembly, and the screw holds it in place. So that's what that looks like. And you can see how it's called the oil shield. It really should be called the grease shield, because you can see the gear down here has thrown grease off all over it. So I always take it off and clean it and stuff, but it's not necessary to do that to work on the bobbin. Okay, so what's left here now is this bobbin spindle assembly. It also has a spring underneath it, and this spring can also break or just lose its flexibility even. So you need to be aware of that. But there's not a washer under here or anything. So we'll just take the one screw here, also just holds that assembly. And I'll just hang on to the spindle bracket, and I'll pull out that screw, and there you go. It's a little bit smaller than the engaging lever assembly screw. Down in here. Then I'm going to grab the edge of that spring while I lift up the spindle bracket and the friction ring, so that I don't have to go digging for that screw. and it's also just a one coil, and one end is straight, flat, and the other makes a 90-degree turn. And that screw just goes into the aluminum body here. So when it's put back on, it rests on there like that, and this 90-degree angle rests against the side of the body to give it tension. And this flat part comes and lays on the back side of the friction ring in here against the spindle post, like that. So between the post on this end and the body here, that's what gives it the tension. So when the engaging lever is thrown off when the bobbin's full, I call this the kick-out spring, because it'll kick that spindle bracket enough away from the motor post to stop spinning it. And in case you're wondering, I only had to do this once. This is the 7th Model 503A that I have worked on to restore. Probably about the 10th I worked on. And only on only on one of them did I have to adjust this. This is a little adjustment screw that this finger can be moved closer. Let me get that lever back out. My parts tray here. So they kind of sit like that. And if the adjustments get out, this can be moved back and forth. I've had it where the adjustment was too tight, and even when the bobbin was full, it wouldn't kick that lever away, and it just made a huge mess there. So I loosened the screw and back this finger up just a tiny bit so there wasn't as much pressure on the lever right there. But that's the only one I ever had to do any adjustment on. But that's what it's for. So I usually don't mess with that unless I've got a problem where it's so far off that the lever won't come over and lock against the bobbin. Then I'll have to move that finger forward closer to the lever. Or it's got way too much pressure. Once it gets in there and locks, it can't get back out. Then I'll have to adjust that finger away from the lever. So there you see how easy it is to take that apart if you need to look at those springs, or if you have a broken spring and you want to clean things. And then to reassemble, of course, you just go in reverse. Put this spindle back up here. We get the screw handy so that I don't have to dig for that. What I do is put that flat end over here against the post, and it'll be under pressure to push against that spring back to line up there, and you have to kind of hold this. Whoops, well, that's not a good shot at all, is it? Dang. Okay, you can see from the side a little bit. So that spring with the 90 degree is down in there now, but you have to hold that bracket against the tension of the spring and line it up to the hole in the body and get that screw in there. And both of these screws for me are hard to start, and and they have been on whatever machine I've worked on. I don't really know what's up, why that is, but I've noticed it every single time, including this time, of course, now that I'm filming. It's the first time I've ever filmed it. Oh, I think I finally got it in there. Okay. So I'll kind of finger tighten that, and then I'll play around with this to try and get it adjusted properly. And the spring coil usually comes under here, not sticking out the back. So I'm just going to take a regular screwdriver and firm it up a little bit. Because you'll be able to tell by the feel if you've got that spring pinched in the screw or something like that. But usually the coil is around this side and down here, not up around the back. And you want to be sure this is going straight down, and then just slowly tighten it up. Usually wiggle it a little bit and make sure it's got freedom of movement. There you go. It's like a swivel screw, so you can tighten it firmly because it'll just swivel. And if it doesn't swivel like that, then you've got the spring pinched in the screw someplace. So just make sure you got, it doesn't move much, you see that? Was that a 1/16 of an inch or something? Okay. And that's pretty much getting the whole bobbin spindle assembly back in there. It's just those 3 pieces. Let me get these other pieces, and then I'll show you how to, the tricky little spring installation on the engaging lever assembly. So if you took the oil shield off, of course you're going to want to put that on first, and you have to kind of get you some slack up there next to the friction ring, and kind of work that wire. See, it comes out on the left and comes in up here on the right side of it. It is a little easier to get out than to put back in. And then you've got to slip the hole in here over the end of that screw. Remember, that's what holds this end of the oil shield. And it presses firmly against the clamp that screw's holding. And then when you get that wire tucked down away from the tire or friction ring so that it can move a little bit. Okay, so that's the easy part. Boy, it's a tight fit in there, isn't there? Isn't it? By the way, this friction ring is smaller than most of them. It's kind of a special one that's smaller. There's a few Singer machines that take this size. But if you buy a more standard one like the 401A, it's going to be too fat in here. So be sure you get one for a 500A or 503A. As you can see, it needs to be a little smaller. There's just not much clearance in there. Whew. Okay, anyway, now comes the part that nobody likes. We're going to put that washer on there, and then we've got to put this spring and the lever. And what's tricky is that the hook part is going to come over the top of the lever and rest right in that little corner right there. But the tail that sticks down has to end up over here, resting over here, resting on the side. See this angle right here on the top of the oil shield? The tail of the spring rests right against this side. And that's what's a little tricky to do, and what most people don't realize when they go to put it back together. They didn't see real close what was going on with that little tail. They don't know that it goes there. So it's just a really fiddly, tricky thing to do. Because once you put it down there, you can't see where the tail is. Now I can see the fish hook end right here, and that's looking good. So I take my little barbecue stick and kind of wiggle it to try and line up the washer and this lever, because this screw too can be hard to get started for some reason. And the problem is, if I let this go and try and look over here to see where the tail is, the whole thing is going to fall apart. So you've got to get this screw in here and get it started, and probably more than halfway in to the hole. Come on, you, before you can kind of double check that tail. Okay, I'm not convinced that that's I'm going to get my little skinny regular screwdriver in here. Yeah, I am in the hole. Okay. Good. So I've got this, got it in there pretty good, and I think the tail might be in the right place, because see how it kind of springs back here? So that's a good sign. So here's my fish hook, and I played around with this just now to see if I could get a good shot of that tail under there, and I really didn't have much luck because it's just so dark. But you'll be able to see it. The edge of the coil of my spring is coming around up here, and the tail of the spring is resting against that slanted edge of the oil shield, and my fish hook is here. And to test it, I can see I've got some spring action. Okay, it's not much, but it's enough. Okay, and if the tail had slipped around in the front over here, when you flip this up, it would just go up. And before you disassemble it, if it doesn't come back like this, it either means the spring is broken or that the tail has slipped around the side of the oil shield, or the tail has broke off. Usually what I find is the tail's broke off or this fish hook has broke off, so it just can't keep this little bit of tension on here. But I think I got it the first time there, so I got pretty lucky. So now I'm going to firm it up here, and then I'm going to test it again. Yay! Okay, and then we're going to test it by engaging the lever. Might as well put a bobbin on there. Let's see, I think it goes this way. And engage that lever into the bobbin. Oop, I don't think my bobbin's on there all the way, is it? Oh, it won't engage. Oh, there it goes. Should be pushing it back here, not up here. Get it from this way. Disengage, engage. What's up here? Okay. Then when this thread would fill and push that edge out, spring comes, brings this lever back far enough that it disengages from the side finger on the bracket right there, which lets the kick out spring move this over about 1 millimeter, and then it won't turn. So engaged, right, disengaged. Okay, something, it almost seems like this lever's sitting up a little too high. Didn't want to slide right into that bobbin. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Alright. I guess it's okay. Then disengage. No spin. Engage. Spin. Fill the bobbin. Kick it out. No spin. So if you don't want to fill your bobbin, you engage it, and see, I can. There we go. We engage it, and then you fill the bobbin. If you only want it, halfway full, just do it halfway, and stop. And then you can just put your thumb right on the edge of the lever and push it away and take off your bobbin. So you don't have to use the automatic thing. So just as a final reminder, the tire, the friction ring or rubber tire, back out here, for the 500 and the 503 is a little smaller size, diameter than, I think, just the outside. I think the inside part is the same, but it's the outside. It's like a low profile tire. And if you put a regular one on there, it's going to be too tight a fit. And on this spring, the right angle goes here, and the flat tail goes on top of the metal hub for the friction ring and against the side of the spindle post. That's how it makes tension. And then on the little spring, if it hasn't broken on you, the fish hook comes up right in the crook, right in the inside corner there, and the tail that goes down, I'd sure like to show you that, man. It's just not. Let me grab this light over here. I don't know, it's right there on the edge of that slant of this bracket. I just I don't know, it's just right there. See if I pointed it from this side, maybe. It's right there. It's about the best I can do for you. Sorry. So those are the things to watch for. If you have to replace that tire, make sure you get one made for the 500 and 503. And these springs can be available. Let's see, I looked the other day and I saw some at Central Michigan Sewing, both, and I saw at Sew Classic, SCW-Classic. Sue there had both for sale, and they're each like about $3 or $4. And I found a couple sellers on Amazon that had one or the other for about $6 or $7, and one or two people on eBay. So Central Michigan Sewing and Sew Classic had the best price recently at the time of this filming. Alrighty, so that's everything I know about the bobbin winder, and I can't really demonstrate it because I haven't really taken a good look or clean of this machine or oiling. Maybe you can hear how dry it's. As dry as my scalp, man, let me tell you. So I'll probably demonstrate it once I get it all restored and everything and show it in action. But if you do what I've showed you in this video, it'll be ready to go for you. Thanks for watching Andy Tube. I hope it was worth your time. Come back and see me. Take care.